Let's talk trash, not the kind that you throw away. No, I'm talking about the 8 types of waste that you can eliminate to increase the productivity in your business. I'm Coach Raejean, and I'm passionate about helping small businesses succeed. I know that a lot of us entrepreneurs, we escaped corporate and we tend to rebel against anything that resembles that former corporate life. And as much as we dislike that corporate culture, there are some things that we kind of snub that actually help us work smarter. I'm talking about things like our org charts and our SOPs and operating lean by reducing waste. So today I'm talking about ways to save you energy and time and money by reducing this waste that we have in our business. So we'll dive right in that in just a minute. But I want to share how I learned about this. So when I was a claims adjuster for a major insurance company, they gave us this cool things, and it was like the 7 types of waste. Apparently they've added one since then, but it was one of those things I haven't thought about in the last few years since I left my corporate job. But when I was doing the standard operating procedure training for our small group coaching, I started off with a checklist for my challenge because I noticed I was going back, what did I say last time? Or what did I do last time? So I kept going back and forth. I'm like, okay, I'm going to start a checklist. So this was the beginning of my SOPs, if you will. I noticed that I was going to this app and I did steps 1 and 2. And then I went to a different spot and I did steps 3 and 4. And then I went back to the first app and I did step 5. I was like, oh, why don't I should be doing all 3 of those steps while I'm in the app. So it's a super small adjustment and might only save me a few minutes, but as I go through the rest of my checklist and I save a minute here, I save a minute there, by streamlining it, that whole process could save me maybe 5 or 10 minutes every time I, go through this checklist, or 5 or 10 minutes a day, or 5 minutes when I set up the Facebook group, whatever it is. And you think about how much time can you save across all of your tasks. If you're saving, 10 minutes on this task and 10 minutes on that task and 5 minutes and 20 minutes, and all these minutes add up and they help us to work smarter, not harder. And I remembered the training that I had back through my insurance. So I pulled up my notes, I did some research, and so I did get so much good feedback from this training that I did for our program that I wanted to share that with you here today. So before we dive into the 8 types of waste and what they look like for running a small business, I'd love for you to subscribe to the channel. I like visuals. It always helps me. So I made one to share so you can kind of get just a visualization of what we're doing. So let me share my screen here, and you can see the cool little visual I made. So we're going to start here at the top with overproduction. So overproduction is if you're a product based and you're making products, obviously overproduction is you would think, oh, it's making more, but that's a little bit different. So it's not only just making more than what you need, because that will lead us to number 2, we'll talk about in a second, but it's more about adding more bells and whistles than your customers want. It's about that I'm going to cram so much values into this thing that your customers don't really care about. So you're spending a lot more time and energy on giving your customers more than they want. And sometimes, so you're wasting your time if it's not something they want, they don't appreciate it, it doesn't give them any value. And sometimes it can even be a deterrent instead of adding value to your business. We see this a lot with coaching, where we're going to give you all this information and your customers, your students just get so bombarded with all the information that they're overwhelmed, and it actually ends up getting less value from what you give. When I was working in insurance, it was like, let me do these other 5 things. I can set this up or send this to you. And they didn't care. So this is about focusing on what your customers actually want and giving them that. Yes, bonuses are cool, but only if there's actually value added. So the other type, the making more than you need kind of overproduction, that leads us directly into number 2, which is inventory. So inventory, we all know what inventory is. We have to count it at the end of every year, and it's so much fun. Not, there's a few things to think about when you have inventory. Number one, there's money wrapped up in those products that you can't sell because it's in inventory. There's storage cost. So whether it's a physical cost of paying for a storage unit or just the space it takes in your home or your facility or wherever you're working, there's even just the cost of like how much, the more inventory you have, the more you have to count at tax time. So there's the time involved. There's a time involved with just kind of maintaining your inventory, and we'll talk more about that. So these are these little places where we can waste our resources, whether it's time, money, space, even all these things are things that we can cost us productivity, cost our business time and money. The third one is rework. So when you are doing something over again, even just in my example of my checklist of setting up the Facebook group, if I'm going from Facebook and then I go somewhere else and I go back to Facebook, just even if I open up the tab again, I mean, that is technically rework on a very, very small scale. But all these little things is that if you can do it once instead of repeating yourself to do the next step. Oh, I've got to go log in again to this piece of software because now I've got to do step 4 because I didn't do it when I was there to do step 1 and 2, that type of thing. Rework we also see in when we let the inner perfectionist in us win, and we want to, hold on, let me edit this copy just a little bit more. Let me, can I edit these pictures a little bit more? Can I, play with whatever and just try to make it just a little bit better? And you're just reworking and reworking, and you can spend a lot of time and resources there. The next step is waiting. This one is much more noticeable when you're not a solopreneur and you're working with people. I'm working with a graphic designer and I have to send them what I want and I have to wait for them to send it back. And then I have to tell them what changes I want and I have to wait for them to make them and come back, So sometimes there's that type of thing, or it goes through a process, and every time it goes from one person to another is usually or just one step to another. Sometimes there's a waiting that happens at each step. So by consolidating the steps, or what can you automate? Those are the ways that you can reduce that waiting. So before we wrap up the last half of the list, comment on the form of waste that has the biggest impact on your business so far. I want to hear, what do you see in your business that you can streamline, these types of waste that you can eliminate in your business? I want to know. So drop me a comment below. Then we're going to go back into number 5. I don't know what number it is. Yeah, number 5, I can count, but the 5th one is movement. And this is unnecessary trips between places. If you do have physical product and you move it, I would think of it as something like if you're doing farmers markets and you have to pack up all your stuff, take it to the farmers market. Anything you don't sell, you have to pack up and bring back again. So just the time of packing it up twice. I mean, obviously we would love to just go and sell everything, but that isn't always the case. So is there a way that we can reduce that? I mean, also you think about every time you move, there's something, every time you transport it, I guess not movement, transporting, I'm on the wrong one. So every time you transport something, there's, the resources to pack it and move it. And there's also the time, and there's also the increase of chance to break something. So coordinate times can be a thing. So movement, so movement is more not so much with the vehicle, it's just with you, unnecessary trips between places. Even on my initial example in the checklist, it wasn't a physical moving, but it was going from one software to another one, then back to the other one. When I worked at the insurance company, I kind of liked the movement. Yes, I could totally email this person, but I want to get up out of my chair and take some steps and walk over. So, it's finding ways that are efficient for you, but sometimes there's some benefit in keeping the movement in there. Again, it's all about streamlining and how can you work smarter, not harder. And finally, we're going to talk about defects. So these are products that have to be thrown away or sold at a discount. If you are a Jelly Belly fan, when I lived in California, we would go to their factory and they would have these bins of their oops. So they were jelly beans that didn't pass quality control that had to be sold at a discount. So obviously we want to avoid defects. If you're not a products-based business, I think about, for me, my defects would be when I post something on social media and I realize that it was at the wrong time or there was something, I have to go in and delete it and do it again. I guess that could be rework also, but those types of things. And then the last one is the extra processing. Do you have unnecessary steps in your systems that are adding time? Is there a way to streamline? Are all those steps actually needed? I'm going to stop sharing my screen here so I can see you guys again. And so those are the types of waste that we can have in running a small business that can just cause us delays, that make everything take longer. I have a link for you to get your own copy. So click that link below and I will be back with you guys next time.